For the past 2 years my dog passed, and every day I miss him. It will 2 years ago this May 10th, to be exact, since I lost my dog. His name was George. I got him when I turned 7, and I'm 19 now, turning 20 this October. He was only a few months old when he came into my life. He was a yellow Labrador with beautiful golden fur and tail that never stopped wagging. I had a lot of acquaintances when I was little because of all of the sports I played. I had fun, but nothing filled me with more joy than coming home after practice to find George waiting for me, his tail swinging back and forth. He loved tennis balls. Not a day went by that he didn't play with and subsequently tear up a tennis ball we got for him. Every Christmas my family and I would get a pack of up to 12 tennis balls for him. Unfortunately, he would go through all of them in less than a week. It was insane how fast he could destroy them. Well, towards the end of his life, he started to have pains, as is normal for any old dog of 10 years. But these pains were not normal aches, but something much worse that would not be revealed to us until much later. A tumor had been developing in his hips for about a year and a half or so. My family has never been super rich, we get along just fine, so regular vet visits were very rare for us. Trust me, if we had the money, we would have made sure he got a checkup more frequently than he did. In January of 2013, he began to lose all feeling in his hind legs and his tail. It was slow at first, but by April of the same year, he was immobile from his midsection to his hind legs' toes. The tumor was growing in size, and we were told by the vet that it was near inoperable. If they could get it out, he would probably live another few months or so before succumbing to other ailments. Labradors don't live long, sadly. Starting in April 2013, my dad and I, depending on who was around, had to carry George everywhere. Whether George needed to use the restroom outside, because he lost feeling in his hips, he had no control over his bladder, wanted to go lay down in another room, had to eat and or drink something, my dad and or I were there to carry him. It was heartbreaking to see a dog who used to be the liveliest thing in my life suffer so much. What was the most heartbreaking part of this whole ordeal is that he lost all feeling in his tail, too. No matter how hard he tried, by the end of his life, he could not move it at all. If he tried really hard, he might have been able to scoot across the ground a few inches at most. His constantly wagging tail was a symbol of his abounding energy and enthusiasm for life itself, and even that was being paralyzed by his illness. On May 9th, my mom and I were talking about George's ordeal, and she and I had the brutally honest conversation of having to put him down. It was the only option we had, and believe me when I tell you that we exhausted all other options at this point. She said that she believed he was doing a little better, so we would give him a week to see if we could get more money and or if he would feel any better. The next day, May 10th, I was at school. I went to this homeschool co-op school meeting thing when I got a call from my mom. The call essentially consisted of her saying that George's pain seemed to have escalated tenfold, because he looked, felt, and sounded utterly miserable. The phone call ended with her saying that we needed to go to the vet to put him down that day, not in a week. That news hit me harder than anything I've ever experienced prior to it. I didn't have my license just yet, so I couldn't race home to be with George. I had to wait for my friend's mom to come pick me up along with said friend. She consoled me in the car, and we had a nice conversation about all of the fun times we had had with George. When I got home, my mom greeted me at the door, with tears already in her eyes. She gave me a hug and said that we would leave for the vet in an hour or so. I spent the rest of that time with George. I never truly understood the gravity of the situation, the reality of putting my best friend down in a matter of a few hours, until I saw him after I got home. I took one look into his eyes, which were looking at me. They were so tender and timid, and I started bawling like a baby. It was at that moment of contact between me and him that the inevitability of his death was approaching very quickly. When he looked into my eyes, it was almost as if I could hear him say that he knew what was happening to him, he knew what going to happen to him, and he knew that we leaving soon. I stayed with him for the rest of the day. We loaded him into the car and went on our way. I sat in the back of our Chevy Suburban with him. I carried him into the vet, into a back room, and set him on an operating table. The vet asked if I wanted to leave while they put him down, and I told him bluntly, almost abrasively, no. I will stay here with him. He complied, and carried out the euthanasia process. I held his hand and told him how much I loved him over and over again while they pumped this odd-looking liquid into him. In a few seconds, his heart began to slow to a calm, peaceful stop and his eyes closed forever. He breathed his last breath soon after. They had a cardboard coffin prepared for him, which we put him in. I wrapped his body in a blanket that was given to me by the cast of a show I had been in a few months back. We buried him right next to our house, and placed a brick and a plant there, as a sort of gravestone. To George, hi, buddy. I miss you so much right now. Our family misses you, too. I hope you're having a blast playing with all of our other animals that have gone before you. Keep them safe, okay? I love you to the moon and back, and I'll see you someday soon.